All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Will Builds. I'm Will, and Will Builds is my silly name for this who knows how many episode series about building things in 3D and using drawing and calipers to kind of help that process along. I've been teaching a SolidWorks class at Ohio State this semester, and the live streaming thing seems to have helped out the students, and I figured I would. Actually, a few people asked if I could stream some of the other things, small projects that I end up working on throughout I don't know, my time when I'm not at Ohio State. And so I said, sure. Um, so right now we're in my office at Idea Foundry, which is a cool makerspace in Columbus, Ohio. And you can see behind me, I have a bunch of clutter from a whole bunch of projects, Safety Third Racing, a drone racing team, Local Tech Heroes, which is a not-for-profit tech education outreach program, and a bunch of other random stuff too. So today we're going to be taking a look at um, we're going to be taking a look at this window holder, window handle thing that one of the people at Idea Foundry asked if I could replicate using SolidWorks so that we could 3D print out copies. So that's it. And I guess one of the things I like to do before I start building anything in 3D is sort of work out in my head how I might actually use features in a 3D modeler like SolidWorks to create this or recreate this as a virtual model. I'm going to jump right in. This is not really a series about how to learn how to build something using SolidWorks. If you know SolidWorks or if you're new to SolidWorks, this might be helpful for you. If not, this video might be interesting to you just to see a window into the process that I use to recreate an object in 3D. I might talk a little bit about the tools I'm using, but the basic concepts might be interesting to some of you. For the most part, in SolidWorks, there are a few different things that I can do, and 3D modeling is always about, for me, breaking down the process of how I might build something into smaller steps. So this is a relatively simply object with a few kind of complex shapes. And this is my build outline that I sort of drew ahead of this episode. First step is I'm going to try and just extrude a basic shape, kind of this view of the shape. Second, I'm going to cut out, I guess, a profile from the side view. Third, extrude a section up to sort of get this feature. And fourth, start working on some of the details that you see in this piece, namely like some holes and like a shelling on the inside of this piece. I will be using a pair of, or a set of digital calipers. I work in millimeters. This is a great tool for measuring things very accurately, and because I will be hopefully 3D printing this object, I need to make sure I measure everything and sort of build it to a relatively high degree of accuracy, plus or minus 0.1 millimeters or so. Okay, so that's my setup. That's how I'm going to get started. Let me switch over to this build window. So for this demo, I'm using SolidWorks 2017. My students at Ohio State use SolidWorks 2016 Student Edition. It's pretty much the same. A lot of the there's going to be a lot of overlap between these things. So, all right, here we go. You should still see me in the live stream, like down in the corner, and you should see like a very small view of what I'm doing with my hands. If I think about it, I'll try and like zoom in on my hands so I can show you what I'm taking measurements of, but I will probably forget a whole bunch too. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a brand new part file in SolidWorks, and pick a view that I'm going to use to sort of sketch this from the top. And like I already sort of guessed, I might start with this shape right here. So let's find a plane and make a sketch. And usually I like to just sort of rough out my shape using a few lines. I might actually build this in, like cut it in half and build half at a time and then mirror things once I get to the end of my build. Okay, let's see. So right now, a sketch, for those of you who aren't familiar with 3D modeling or SolidWorks, and specifically, a sketch is just a way to add lines to a space, a 2D plane, and eventually we're going to use those lines in the sketch to create 3D geometry, and we'll get to that. Once I create some lines, there's some other things I can do to make sure those lines kind of behave the way I want them to. I can add things called constraints, these little green things, to make sure, even as I add dimensions and push and pull my different lines around, they stay related the same way. Like parallel lines stay parallel, perpendicular lines stay perpendicular, etc. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick dimension here. Roughly, how wide is this thing? It looks like we're at about 20, you know, we might just call that 29 millimeters going across here. Now, I am an industrial designer by profession, not an engineer, but closely related field. It's sort of a blend of technical stuff and artistic stuff. So I guess what I mean to say is the way I'm building these objects is not necessarily the right way. And in many cases, there are lots of ways to build objects. But this is one way to do it, and for my purposes of just like replicating this part, you know what, that's actually, yeah, 30, okay. Just one perspective. Okay, let's measure how wide this object is. I think about 101.5 millimeters. Because I'm building this in halves, I can dimension things across the center line. 101.5. Consequently, my favorite used to be CD101, favorite radio station in Columbus. Now it's 102.5. A random fact. All right, let's see if we can measure this fillet, this curve here. And we can get it close. We can always kind of eyeball it and change it later. Oh, cool. I'm actually pretty close. Okay. Nice. All right, so I've made part of my sketch here, and I'm going to extrude this up, kind of like I have in my outline. Only difference is I'm kind of doing this in halves rather than the whole shape all at once. 7.5. Yeah. All right, so there we go. I've got half of my shape. I can kind of turn on perspective to see how that looks. All right, next thing I said I might do is this extrude cut. Use a sketch on the side to cut away from the shape that I have. All right, so it looks like that's just a very normal curve. And it goes in about, it's probably another 7.5. So let's see. Oh, that was my keyboard. I might need a construction line here to keep this horizontal. Looks like this cut should come in about 7.5 millimeters. Okay, and oops, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to use that, and instead of creating another shape out of it, I'm going to use an extruded cut to go all the way through this shape. And you can kind of see where the yellow shape that's ghosted is what I'm about to cut away from the gray shape. And hopefully that is what you imagined happening. Now, let's see here. I might actually want to leave a little bit of thickness down in that edge. Right now, there's like a knife edge right here, and that's not going to print very well. Although it actually is pretty sharp. So let's go back in and edit this sketch just a little bit. I have a little bit of space in the bottom here, like 0.5 millimeter ought to do it. Actually, I should be able to pull dimension off of that tip. So the other thing I have to keep in mind here is the resolution of my 3D printer. I believe in the z-axis I can get down to like 0.1 millimeters, but only one layer of material is probably not going to be very strong once I finish this part. Okay, you can kind of see how I have half of what I imagined I was going to have down in my drawing. The next thing I thought I was going to do is extrude another shape out the top. Let's draw on the top plane. Figure out what this shape looks like. About 66 millimeters across. Alright, so I'm just making a box. I wonder if it will let me a dimension across here. No, I gotta make a special center line, and then I can say 66 millimeters across. You know what? It looks like there's a little bit of a gap in between. There's like a little edge right here that I want to leave. So I'm going to delete a few relations and add in a dimension. That's, again, probably 0.5 millimeter is all it really needs. Okay. Let's take this and extrude it up the right length or the right height, 12.77. So we could probably go 12.75. Okay, there we go. Now one thing I am doing with this model, it looks like the lights in my room just turned off. Come on, they're motion censored, motion activated. Okay, I'm not working off of a master sketch. I'm sort of building one sketch at a time and dimensioning it and then quickly absorbing that sketch into another feature like an extrude or a cut or another extrude. This object is very simple and won't have too many features once it's finished, so that's okay. Maybe in one of the next few objects that I build here, I'll use a master sketch, which is my preferred way of sort of organizing a model to keep dimensions all in one sketch and then sort of building many features off of copies of that sketch. All right. So now just to show you what I mean by like a mirror, I'm building half this object and eventually I'm going to mirror it. Let's mirror this over. So there we go. There's like the whole object and it's starting to look kind of close if I turn on perspective to the object that I'm holding in my hand, which actually I should be able to switch back over and show you like which one is it? Yeah, what's in my hand here. Yeah. But you can see there are a couple things I haven't built yet. Namely, The most important parts are these little countersunk holes. I think this like ribbing inside here probably is just because this is an injection molded part. I don't think I want to include that in my 3D printed part. I have this area to hollow out. I've got a rounded edge that I need to build, and it looks like from the top view these are kind of cut on the corners. So I've got some details to work on. Do that next. Yeah, this is Will Builds. Which one? There we go. Trying to get my keyboard shortcuts to work out here. This actually might be a good time to save save my part file. So window handle. Solidworks likes to crash on me sometimes, so I like to save early and save often. Okay, let's do. Why don't we add that fillet? So it looks like I have a rounded edge all the way around this part. And you know what? Before I do that, I'm gonna get rid of this mirror feature. I'm gonna keep building this one half at a time because it's identical on all sides. Or I guess there's a symmetry in this object, so I can build half and then mirror everything once it's all finished. Okay, let's add a fillet to this edge, and it looks like it might be, yeah, something kind of like that, which kind of includes the cut. That's kind of neat. I suppose I could try and measure how far in that fillet goes. Measuring how far a fillet goes in to a shape is not always the easiest thing to do. It looks like I have a couple fillets because this top edge is round also. So I'm just going to try and approximate this. Eyeball it, try and get this in front of the camera, but also where I can see it. And you know what, 7.5 looks pretty good. So we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it at that. Say okay. All right, what next? It does look like I have a shell that I need to complete here. Meaning like hollow out this inside part in this face. I guess I could try and do that first. I might have to try a couple things to get this to resolve. So there's a tool called shell, and I kind of don't want this to be any thinner than 3 millimeters. That will hollow out a part. And you know what? I might try something here really quick. I'm going to actually split this object, shell it, and then add it back together. You know what? And so I'm going to have to create a tool. So you notice, like, when I tried to shell here really quick and showed a preview, like, nothing was really happening. If I go down to, like, a really thin shell, still nothing is happening. I think there are some really small features over here that are preventing this shell from even starting to happen. So rather than try and simplify this part, I think before I do the shell, I think I'm going to cut it in half. So let's add a, where is it? Some reference geometry. Let's make a plane right here. Coincident. Okay, and I'm going to use that plane to split my object into 2 pieces. And then I'm going to try my shell. Show the preview. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to shell it at 3. No, 3 might be too thick. Well, what does it say? Like 2 millimeters. Okay, fine. 2 millimeters. And if I say okay, there is something I want to change. This wall does not need to be that thick. So I'm going to edit this feature. I want this face, yeah, to extend all the way through. And you know what? I can probably extend this one through as well and just say, okay. Yeah, there we go. Let's show this one again. That's pretty nice. And then I'm going to combine these two objects together and add them back together and save. Okay. Now you can kind of see how I have a little bit of thick. Right now, this part gets very, 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 very thin right here. And if I use a section view to kind of show what that looks like, yeah, see how if I were to cut this part with this purple plane here, it gets really sharp on that face right there. I don't want that. That is not going to print very well. So looking at the real part, it looks like there's some thickness added that I can build back in here. So let's try making a sketch on this plane and just duplicating that entire face. Actually, you know what? I might want to offset it. I'm going to Control Z, undo that. I'm going to offset this by how big is this lip here? I can use my calipers to kind of gauge that depth. Like 1¼ Okay, let's try that. I might move this back in so it's coincident there. And extrude that just like another, oh geez, that was not what I wanted to have happen. I only wanted 0.5 millimeters. Yeah, like that. Make a little bit of a lip here. That plane I can probably hide. Let me save this. Okay, so I added a little bit of thickness there. Okay, another thing I noticed looking at this part is it looks like that lip doesn't really extend to this part of the surface. So I'm going to go back into the sketch and get rid of a relation really quick, move this down so it's coincident with the top of that edge, and say, okay, yeah, that's looking a little bit better. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that right now. All right, another little detail I notice, and I wonder if I can switch to my camera here. One really little detail I notice, if I can get my camera to focus, is that, oh man, come on. Well, I guess there's an edge that you can sort of see. Come on, focus for me. Sometimes it likes fingernails. It'd be nice if I had like a manual focus button for this camera. Oh, we had it there for a second. All right, well, there's a little, there, you can kind of catch the light on it by my thumbnail. There's a little bit of this edge that ends up showing above the top of this ridge here. I could probably add that in by drawing another sketch here really quick and sort of hacking it into place. Let's see. I want that to sit down. Not sure how deep that is. We'll measure it here. It's probably only about 0.5 millimeter. I'll use a trim tool to cut these lines. And let's see if I can measure that depth. Oh, it might be more than that. It might be like a millimeter. 0.75? Okay, well, sure. Rebuild. We're going to use that sketch. Cut through. Okay, well, I think I'm happy with that for now. Okay, a few more things I need to add. I've got a couple holes to add. So let's draw on my top plane again, sketch, and figure out where these holes are supposed to go. And I'm going to try and find dimension to the middle of the hole from the middle of the part. And this is probably the most important dimension here because there is hardware that's supposed to exist. 25.25. To hold this window in place, there's some sort of hardware. Alright, so I said 25.25, and it should be right in the middle of this part here. Like 765. I am just going to put it right in the middle. From here to this edge is 7.65 divided by 2. Oh, you know what? I dimensioned that incorrectly. I'm going to get rid of this guy. Instead, dimension it from this line. All right, and how big is that hole? It looks like we are at 4.61, and that must be it's not a metric hole. That 4.61 must be close to something in, let's see, millimeters to inches. 4.61. I guess that's close to 0.1875 almost. I don't know. That's a weird shaped hole. A weird sized hole. Fine, fine. We'll just deal with it. Okay, there's my hole. I'm going to cut through everything in this direction. There's my hole. I noticed on the back side of this part, the hole is countersunk, meaning it's got this like conical lead-in. No, I know that there is a hole feature, a hole wizard that you can use to create a hole in Solidworks. And you know what? Let's see if we can do that. I haven't done that in a really long time, but I think I can using. Let's see, it's find a position. No, it's countersunk. It is. You know what? I don't know what size screw it's supposed to be. I wish I could dimension it. You know, this would be a fun thing. To explore further. I might have to mess around with the hole creator a little bit more. Alright, well, let's see. Can I change the size of this? Section dimensions. Okay. So it looks like one of these dimensions, I said this was the, like, 4.61. Can I change that 4.61? through everything. Countersunk diameter is quite a bit larger. It's like, we can say, well, you know, we might even go a little bit bigger here and say 8 millimeters. Countersink angle, no idea. Oh, this is probably a better way to do it. Okay, 4.61. The depth is all the way through. The countersink diameter is 8 millimeters. The angle looks less than 80. That looks like maybe 60. And yep, it goes through everything. Okay. I want it right there. No, I don't want that. Use the dimensions and other sketch tools to position a hole or slot. Okay, well, sorry I couldn't get the whole thing to work. I feel like it was pretty close. That's fine. We'll just do it like we were going to do it. Okay. And we're just going to add a chamfer. The quick and dirty way to do this is just add a chamfer to this guy right here. We might go distance, distance. And say